there, thanks for being here. My name is Mile Marker, also known as Madeline. This podcast aims to discover what it means to live authentically. I work to uncover tools to help me be most present in my life. Each episode, we will discuss themes like how to listen to your body, understanding ways to be true to yourself, and learning what deep fulfillment looks like. The episodes will also relate to ideas inspired by my 2024 hike across the state of Arizona. Let's do this.
Welcome to episode 8. This is chronicling my 8th day during my hike across the state of Arizona. This hike took place in mid-March through April, and there weren't that many things that I was missing or regretting by leaving Austin, but one thing that I had a little bit of sadness towards was the bluebonnets, missing bluebonnet season. If you have ever been to Central Texas before in the springtime, typically late March and early April, bluebonnet flowers come up. They are early spring flowers in the Austin area, and they are a type of lupine, and I love them. I love the bluebonnets. They make me so happy. Depending on if there had been a lot of rain in the year prior, sometimes you'll have a few bluebonnets here and there, and sometimes you will have huge, dense patches of bluebonnets. And so during the season, I loved finding the huge fields and taking pictures of them or just looking at them and marveling at them. And the reason why they're special flowers is because their season is fairly short-lived. They will come up and they will be in thick bloom, but then this thick bloom doesn't last, and then they will die and then make way for new springtime flowers. I knew that when I left Austin to hike in Arizona, I would be missing the Austin bluebonnet season. Actually, in my audio, I don't think I mentioned this, but something that I took a picture of was that this hike day was up to Colossal Cave. And in the morning of day 8, at 9:31 a.m., I took a photo. And it was of a lone bluebonnet. So this was the first bluebonnet that I'd seen of the hike. And I was thrilled. I was so excited. First of all, I didn't even know bluebonnet lupine flowers grew in the Tucson area of Arizona. I had no idea. So when I saw it, I was thrilled. So excited. And then I proceeded to see a lot of bluebonnets throughout the hike, but I was really happy to see this on this portion of my hike. So let's get into the audio, shall we?
Today is Sunday, March 17th. It is 12:33 p.m. It is day 8. I am toast. We hiked 12 miles or so to get to Colossal Cave campground. I'm really tired. It was sunny. It was already 70 by like 10 a.m. I had the umbrella up a lot. We made it here. Hopefully Morgan gets here soon. I'm just pretty wrecked. But there were a few mountain bikers. I slept through the night okay, but I didn't put the sleeping bag in the sleeping pad, so I was like rolling off, and I didn't understand why. Our box is here. Colossal Cave. Colossal Cave is sweet. It was built by the CCC in the whenever that was 40s. There's a really good concession stand, so we're getting concessions and soda and relaxing. My feet hurt almost like Pinhoti, so I really need to just chill a little more. Today was hard. Today's one of the hardest days, so I'm glad we made it. And then we'll just get back on the trail to go sleep, and then figure that all out. Making it though, somehow.
What you just heard was audio from my 8th day hiking across the Arizona Trail. Honestly, it makes sense that I was really tired and that my feet were really hurting by the time I made it to Colossal Cave, because hiking 12 miles by 12:33 is actually pretty good. In hindsight, that was a full day, a very full day, just basically in the morning. It also was just interesting that everything is so relative, because I was saying, oh my gosh, it was 70 degrees and it was sweltering and I needed to use my umbrella, or I was feeling so hot. And it's funny just because 70 degrees in other instances is really not that hot. But in my experience, in the desert of Arizona, with the blistering sun, 70 degrees was a lot for me to handle, especially compared to cooler days that we'd also been experiencing. So just thought that was something I would remark on. But making it to Colossal Cave was wonderful. Something else that I wanted to remark on is that I had mentioned in the audio about my sleeping pad and sleeping bag kind of separating a little bit. And I have a down sleeping bag. But the way that it's crafted is kind of interesting in the sense that all of the loft is on the top of the sleeping bag, but there is basically no back. The back is just a thin sheet of, I guess, nylon. And the reason for this is that you want the loft to be fluffy and to keep you warm on top of you, especially because heat rises. So you want it from your body upward. But this is also so that you can take advantage of sleeping pads as your insulation on your backside. In the past, when I had used a accordion style foam pad, I would just lay my sleeping bag directly onto that accordion foam pad, and there would be a little bit of space between the backside of your sleeping bag and the sleeping pad, but that was no big deal. Since this trip was the first time I had a inflatable sleeping pad, the sleeping bag is an interesting design where there's a sleeve. This thin nylon backing has a pocket, and you can inflate the sleeping pad so that you can slide it into the sleeping bag sleeve. And sometimes I would do this and sometimes I wouldn't. And it was really cool, actually, because it would be kind of compressed. The sleeping pad would be directly against your back. And I think the reason for this is so that you can't roll off of it. It becomes one unit. But also it was a little bit hard for me to shove the inflated pad into the sleeve at times. So I kind of went back and forth between if I wanted to insert the pad into the sleeping bag sleeve or if I just wanted to sleep directly on top of it. So that's just my logistical side tangent on how to use an inflatable sleeping pad with a sleeping bag with a sleeve if you so choose. But now back to my Colossal Cave story time. I was so happy that my box was there. This was the second resupply box that made it to its destination, and the destination was the Colossal Cave Mountain Park gift shop. So I'm going to spend a minute just talking about what is the Colossal Cave. The Colossal Cave is one of the largest dry cave systems in North America, and it's a tourist attraction now. So people come and visit this cave. It's outside of Tucson, and you can do different adventure levels of cave adventuring, of cave exploration, what have you. You can go for different durations and different levels of extreme cave spelunking, I guess is the word. And there were tourists at this gift shop and at the concession stand and at the cave entrance area all around. This was probably the first major group of regular people that I had encountered since Patagonia. And really, Patagonia was a small town, so there were never like hordes of people there. But this tourist attraction had tourists, and there were people in line for tickets and in line to enter the cave. And I felt kind of like a different type of person than these normal people when I was there. Just feeling so exhausted and opening my resupply box and rifling through it on these picnic tables. I just was kind of like, I'm this hiker trash basically, and all of these normal tour guide goers are probably thinking, what's that lady doing? But one of the things that I wanted to talk about is about doing less. And I don't even want to consider this part of FOMO, fear of missing out. But I got to the cave at 12:33 and was very tired. And the good news was the concession stand that they had was amazing. So I got crinkle cut fries and fried zucchini sticks and a humongous pretzel and likely a Dr. Pepper, but I did not take a picture of the Dr. Pepper. And so I was just hanging out until at least 3 p.m. So this was a really nice long reprieve. But part of me thought I should take a tour of this cave. This cave is an attraction that people are coming from far away to visit. I should see it too. And I want to be specific that I'm using the word should, because it felt sort of like this sense of an obligation. Like, I'm at this place that other people seek out to have an adventure. Why would I not do that? Why would I just opt out? It's just kind of funny that even during this big expedition, I am in the middle of hiking across the state of Arizona, and I still feel this bizarre sense of obligation and guilt to do something just because I can or should. And why? Why do I have this obligation? I don't know where it comes from, or I certainly haven't sat to think about where it comes from, but I do remember thinking, I'm so tired and I just want to enjoy these picnic tables and the concessions and not do this cave spelunk. I didn't end up doing the cave spelunking. Maybe because there were reservations. I don't know why I ended up not doing it. But it doesn't matter really if I chose to enter this cave or chose to not enter the cave. But having this weird sense of pressure is something that I wanted to recognize, or that's what I want to talk about, is there really is no reason to have pressure to do things, especially things that are leisure activities. I'm hiking across the state because I want to. So I should also explore Colossal Cave because I want to, not because I feel some reason that I should. It should just be out of joy and out of desire and innate exploration, not some sort of obligation. At least I trusted my instincts in that moment and just really appreciated the concession stand. And hanging out at the Colossal Cave concession stand was easily one of the best reprieves of the entire trail. And I'm really glad that I did. But I sometimes wish that I didn't feel this weird obligation for doing things just because they're in front of me. But I'm at least learning to listen to this and notice this now. You know, no time like the present. I have a notebook in my house, and I had used this notebook for a corporate seminar that was run by some sort of motivational speaker. And this was from years ago from a company that I used to work for. And one of the first notes that I wrote that I wanted to remember from this motivational speaker was that we are human beings, not human doings. And I'm sure many people use this phrase. But it's true. I don't need to be doing all the time. I can just be. I can just exist. And the irony in that statement is I was doing so much by just hiking. And I wanted to be. I wanted to just sit on the picnic table and relax. And that was exactly what I needed in the moment. Now, if we fast forward to today, I actually think that I have a better understanding of doing things that I want to do versus out of some unidentified obligation. And I'm going to use today as an example. Today is July 5th, 2025. And yesterday was the 4th of July, and yesterday there was really intense rain and flooding in central Texas, in the Hill Country area. And of course, this was unforeseen. And in addition to rain happening with no way of anticipating it, I also had very few plans for this weekend. And I was really glad, because then you can just see where the wind takes you. And today specifically, I woke up on the early-ish side, maybe 7 or so, and read my book a little bit in the morning. And then I was feeling really drowsy, even though it was only like 7:45. But I thought, if I'm feeling sleepy and I want to take a little nap, a little snooze, that's fine. Even though typically I would kind of have guilt or be a little harsh on myself and say, it's 7:45 a.m. You shouldn't be drowsy. You should be awake and ready for the day. But it's drizzling outside. It's gray outside. Also, who cares if I'm a little sleepy? Like, I'm just going to take a little snooze. So that's what I did. I took my nice little fleece blanket and I dozed on the couch for, 20, 30 minutes. And then I felt better. And having negative self-talk around wanting to take a nap just because it was the morning is so silly. And I recognize that it's silly. And at least now I think, okay, I'm being silly. I'm going to nap anyway and move on with my life instead of having so much judgment around what I feel is right in the moment. And because of this intense flooding, it's really scary and a lot of places are having a hard time. So when I was scrolling aimlessly on Instagram and Facebook, I saw that Austin Pets Alive, they were needing help. They were going to go out to Kerrville and try to help the animals in Kerrville. And so I thought, okay, the rain is dying down a little bit in Austin. This is something that I can do to help. I'm not necessarily going to take my Honda Civic and drive out to Kerrville and save the dogs. But I drove to Goodwill and I bought a nice fleece blankie and 3 towels. Then I went to H-E-B and I bought 2 bags of dog food and 1 bag of cat food. And I drove it to Austin Pets Alive. And I dropped it off. And I said, here, you can use this for your supplies, because they were requesting dog food and cat food and supplies. So I felt like that was something that I never would have planned for to do today, but I'm really glad I did. So this was my choice of activity, and it was very spontaneous, and it felt like the right thing for me. And if I had felt over planned or overbooked or just had other things on my agenda or on my mind, they might have kept me from doing this. But I'm really glad that this is how my day has ended up instead. The moral of this episode will be that it's totally okay to do less. In fact, it's really excellent to just do less and do the things that you really want to do with all of your being and with all of your heart. And I'm so glad I did not go into Colossal Cave when I wasn't ready, when I didn't want to, when I really wanted to enjoy the rest and enjoy the snacks and enjoy friendship. And perhaps in the future, I will go to Colossal Cave and I will visit it, and it will be the best moment, and I will be present and I will be prepared, and that will be the time for me to go on that adventure. But today I'm going to try to be present in my activities, and especially to let things that you can't plan for happen. And it's easy for us to have a tendency to want to schedule things and want to have an agenda and want to plan and prepare and execute that. But something about life that allows for spontaneity and allows for you to go with the flow and let things happen as they come to you is really amazing as well. And I'm doing that today, and I feel like today is a good day, even though it's really rainy out and it's really scary. At least I was able to do something that I felt like contributed towards something better in this situation. And I'm going to take rest. I think taking rest is always valuable, especially when we're amidst so much flurry and stimulation and distraction that I'm sitting here and I'm recording this episode and I'm taking rest and I'm being present. And that's hopefully something you're able to do while you're listening, is to be in a good place and feel present and listen and be well.
That concludes this episode of Musings with Mile Marker. Thanks for listening. The intro and outro music are from a track called Wake Robin, composed and recorded by my late grandfather, Bob Ackery. Cover art for this podcast was designed by Polly Morwood. Production and editing of this podcast were done by me, your host, Mile Marker, aka Madeline Ackery. See you next time.